Caitlin Clark just played one of the most intelligent games any guard has ever played in the WNBA. And the wildest part, she did it by barely shooting. 10 field goal attempts. That's it, not because her shot was off. Not because Seattle figured her out. She took 10 shots because at some point during that game she decided 10 was all she needed. Indiana beat the Storm 89-78, and if you just glanced at the box score you'd probably scroll right past it. Another win. Another solid stat line. But then she sat down in front of the microphones after the game and said something that should genuinely send a chill down the spine of every coach in this league. 5 words, no reason to press. And if you actually understand what those 5 words mean coming from her, coming from a player who built her entire identity on pressing, on pulling up from 30 feet, on bending defenses until they snapped, then you already know the WNBA's Caitlin Clark problem just got a whole lot harder to solve. Because this isn't the same player who walked into this league 2 years ago. Something changed. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened in that game, exactly what she said afterward, the injury saga from last year that quietly rewired how she thinks about basketball, a brand new controversy that put the Fever organization under league scrutiny just 3 days later, and why none of it is good news for anybody trying to beat Indiana this season. But to understand why any of this matters, you need to understand what this game actually looked like from inside the building. Picture this, it's a Sunday night in mid-May. Gainbridge Fieldhouse is electric the way it always is now when number 22 is on the floor. If you've been anywhere near the Fever over the last 2 seasons, you know the vibe has completely shifted in Indianapolis. The arena fills up early. Fans line up for warm-ups like it's a concert. They cheer layup drills. That's not normal for the WNBA. That's the Caitlin Clark effect, and it hasn't faded one bit since her rookie year. But behind the energy, the situation was actually pretty uncomfortable for Indiana. They came into this game sitting at 1-2. 2 nights earlier, they dropped a gut-wrenching overtime loss that left a bad taste. They needed a win at home and they needed it to feel clean, not a nail-biter, not a survive and advance situation. A real, decisive, we control this game kind of win. And then the news dropped that made everything harder. Aaliyah Boston wasn't playing. Indiana's all-star center, the anchor of their front court, had hurt her lower right leg in the previous game and was ruled out. Now that alone would be a big deal for any team. But here's the detail that really puts it in perspective. Boston had played in 275 consecutive games. Every single game at South Carolina. Every single game as a pro. She had never missed one. This was the first time in her entire basketball career that she sat in street clothes on game night. That's not just an absence. That's a disruption to the identity of a team that leans on her presence every single night. So now you've got a Fever squad that's already struggling early, missing their second best player for the first time ever at home, needing a statement. And if you've watched basketball long enough, you know exactly what usually happens next. The other star tries to carry the whole thing on her back. She forces 25 shots. She plays hero ball. She tries to be the answer to every single question on both ends of the floor. That's the instinct. That's what most elite players default to when the safety net disappears. Caitlin Clark looked at that script and tossed it in the trash. And what happened in the first quarter set the tone for everything. From the opening tip, Indiana came out like a team that had somewhere to be. They didn't ease into this game. They didn't feel out the Storm's defense or wait to see what Seattle's game plan looked like. They attacked immediately and the Storm had absolutely no answer for it. 15-0. That was the run Indiana went on before Seattle even got on the board. 15 unanswered points to open the game. By the time the first quarter was over, the Fever were up 32-19 and the Storm looked like they'd walked into an ambush. The building was deafening. The energy wasn't just high, it was confident. And the craziest part, Clark had her fingerprints all over that run, but not in the way you'd expect. She wasn't pulling up from the logo. She wasn't going one-on-one and torching defenders off the dribble. She was moving the ball, finding the open player before the defense could rotate. Threading passes into windows that barely existed, getting Kelsey Mitchell clean looks, getting Sophie Cunningham open shots off the bench. She was conducting the entire offense like she'd already seen the play happen 3 seconds before everyone else on the floor. By halftime, she had 17 points and the game already felt like it was over. But the third quarter is where the real story lives, and this is the detail I need you to hold on to. Seattle made adjustments at halftime. They tightened up on Clark. They sent extra attention her way, switched up coverages, did everything a coaching staff is supposed to do when one player is dissecting your defense. And it worked, kind of. They held Caitlin Clark to 2 free throws in the entire third quarter. 2 points, 12 minutes of basketball, 1 trip to the line, and that was it for her scoring. And here's the part that should terrify every team in this league. It didn't matter. not even a little. While Seattle was busy selling out to contain Clark, the rest of Indiana went to work. The Fever outscored the Storm in that quarter anyway and stretched the lead to 77-58. Think about what that means strategically. You did the thing, you executed the game plan. You took away the best players scoring for an entire quarter, and you still got outscored. You still watched the lead grow. You still had no answer. That is a defensive coordinator's worst nightmare because it means the plan doesn't just fail, it backfires. By the fourth quarter, the lead ballooned to 20. Clark was on the bench in sweats watching the end of a game she'd already decided. Final stat line: 21 points on 5 of 10 shooting, 50% from the floor, 2 of 4 from deep, 9 for 9 from the free throw line. Perfect. 10 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks. And she did all of it in roughly 23 minutes of playing time because the game was so far out of reach that she never needed to come back in. Kelsey Mitchell finished with 17. Cunningham added 17 off the bench. The Fever got their first home win of the season and even their record at 2-2. It was clean. It was controlled. It was almost boring. And if you're a point guard, almost boring is the highest compliment anyone can pay your game. But the stats don't tell the real story. What she said at the podium does. After the game, somebody asked her about the efficiency, about the restraint, about a night where she clearly had the ability to take over and chose not to. And what came out of her mouth wasn't some rehearsed soundbite designed for a highlight package. It was quieter than that, more honest, and way more revealing. She said there was no reason to press, get her teammates involved, take what the defense gives her. She mentioned being happy about getting to the free throw line, saying there was probably no need to shoot a bunch of shots when she could get to the line for free points instead. Then she pointed out something almost casually. She'd only played 23 minutes and still had 10 assists. And the way she said it wasn't bragging. It was more like she was confirming something to herself, like she was checking a theory against results and finding out she was right. Now let me unpack that because every single word in there is a window into how basketball looks inside her head right now. Start with no reason to press. Press doesn't mean defense here. She's talking about forcing the issue, gripping the game too tightly, trying to create something spectacular on every possession when something simple would have worked just fine. This is a player who made her name doing exactly that. The contested pull-up from 28 feet, the logo 3 with a hand in her face. The shot nobody else on the planet would even think about taking. Pressing was her whole brand. And here she is, calmly explaining that she looked at the game, assessed the situation, and decided pressing wasn't necessary. That's not a player who lost her edge. That's a player who found a new one. Then get my teammates involved. Notice the word, not pass more, not move the ball, involved. That's a word about rhythm. About making the other 4 players on the floor feel like they matter before the game ever gets tight. It's the difference between a guard who racks up assists as a byproduct and a guard who's deliberately building the confidence of every teammate one possession at a time. Take what the defense gives me. Every player in the league says that phrase at some point. It's practically a cliche, but almost nobody actually lives it. Most players see the defense as a wall to break through. Clark is describing it as a menu to read. Whatever Seattle offered, a driving lane, a kick out, a free throw, she took exactly that and reached for nothing more. That requires something most elite scorers never develop. The willingness to let go of what you want in favor of what's actually there. And then the part that honestly separates the good from the great. She talked about getting to the line, about free points. She wasn't just describing what happened. She was coaching herself in real time, auditing her own performance and concluding that her highest value play isn't launching threes. It's attacking the basket, drawing contact, and converting at the stripe where nobody can legally stop her. That kind of self-awareness usually takes a decade in the league to develop. She's in year 2. Here's the question that should really land. How many superstars sit down after a double-digit win and openly say they should probably shoot fewer shots? The entire identity of a scorer is built on wanting the ball, wanting the moment, wanting the spotlight possession. For Caitlin Clark to voluntarily reduce her own shot volume, not out of frustration but out of genuine understanding, that tells you she's changed what she's measuring herself by. She's not counting points anymore. She's counting control. And that shift didn't come out of nowhere. The real origin story is one most people missed entirely. Everyone remembers that Caitlin Clark got hurt last year, but almost nobody knows the full story. And the full story is a lot uglier than the simplified version that floated around on social media. Rewind to the 2025 season. Clark had just come off a rookie year where she played every single game. Every minute the Fever needed her, she was there. She'd never missed a game at Iowa either. 4 years of college, a full professional season, and not one absence. That was part of her identity. She didn't sit out, she didn't rest, she played. Then 2025 started and everything fell apart. 4 games into the season, she went down with a strained quad. 5 games missed. She came back, played through it, looked like she was finding her rhythm again, and then on June 24th she suffered a groin injury. 4 more games missed. She returned again, gutted through 4 games on a body that clearly wasn't right, and then the other groin gave out. A right groin injury this time. The Fever initially downplayed it, listed her as day-to-day, acted like she'd be back any minute. She never came back. 28 of 41 regular season games. Gone. An entire season that was supposed to be the next chapter of the Caitlin Clark story just evaporated into training room sessions and rehab bikes and watching from the sideline in street clothes. In the 13 games she did play, the numbers were still ridiculous. 16.5 points. Nearly 9 assists, 5 rebounds. But the sample size was too small to matter in the standings, and the Fever had to figure out how to survive without her. Now here's what people don't talk about when it comes to injuries. They focus on the body. The quad heals, the groin heals, the medical staff clears you. But what takes longer to come back is something you can't see on an MRI. Trust. The trust in your own body that lets you explode off a screen without thinking about it. The trust that lets you plant and change direction at full speed without your brain pumping the brakes a half second before your legs do. When that trust breaks, the game slows down in all the wrong ways. You start calculating risk instead of reading space. The freedom in your movement disappears before the athleticism does, and nobody in the arena can tell the difference except you. Most players come back from something like that playing a little more carefully, a little more within themselves. Still good, but with the volume turned down just slightly in a way that's hard to name. That's the common outcome. But there's a rarer outcome, and it's the one that applies here. Sometimes being forced to sit still does something that playing never could. For the first time in her basketball life, Caitlin Clark spent months not inside the game but outside it, watching from the bench, watching her teammates run possessions she would have handled differently. Watching defensive rotations form and break without being the one reacting to them. When you're on the floor, everything is feel. You sense the passing window closing. You react to the help defender by instinct. You don't study the play, you live inside it. But from the bench, you see things you never see as a player. You notice the rotation happening a full beat before the ball handler does. You see the weak side help commit too early. You start understanding timing not as something you execute by reflex, but as something you can actually read like a page in front of you. And when she came back, it showed. Immediately, she wasn't rushing. Not because she couldn't get to her spots, but because she didn't need to anymore. The game looks slower from the outside, and that's the paradox of an elite floor general. Everything looks calm because everything's already been decided internally before the ball even crosses half court. Slower eyes. Faster mind. She stopped sprinting into pressure. She started waiting for pressure to form, then picking it apart before it could close on her. And there's one small detail from the Seattle game that makes the whole thing almost poetic. When she dropped those 10 assists on May 17th, it was reportedly the first time she'd reached double-digit assists since the last game before she got hurt in 2025. She picked up the exact thread she dropped 10 months earlier, like nothing had happened in between. Except everything had happened in between, and all of it made her better. But the injury story doesn't end there. Just 3 days after this game, something happened that put the entire Fever organization under a microscope. May 20th, Fever versus Portland. And just like that, Clark was out again. This time it was back soreness. She'd shown no signs of it during the Seattle game. She wasn't on the injury report the day before. Everything seemed fine. Then, roughly 90 minutes before tip-off, the Fever submitted a last-minute update scratching their franchise player from the lineup. 90 minutes. That's it. No warning, no build-up, just gone. The WNBA wasn't happy about it. The league issued an official warning to the Fever organization for failing to report the injury in a timely manner. In a league that's working hard to grow its visibility and its relationship with fans, bettors, and broadcasters, a franchise player disappearing from the lineup without notice is a problem. Teams are expected to disclose this information with enough lead time for everyone involved to adjust. Indiana didn't, and the league let them know it. But the real fireworks came from Clark herself. When reporters asked her about the whole situation, she didn't hold back. She hit them with a line that went semi-viral almost immediately. "Want to know what I ate for breakfast too?" And then, in classic Caitlin fashion, she actually listed what she had for breakfast. This rattled it off like she was proving a point about how absurd the scrutiny had become. She also revealed that her own mother hadn't found out she was sitting until about 40 minutes before the media did. Think about that. The biggest star in the WNBA gets scratched from a game, and her mom finds out practically the same time as the reporters covering the team. But underneath the sarcasm, there was something more vulnerable. She talked about the mental side of coming back from everything that happened in 2025. She admitted it's still in her head. She said if she doesn't feel 100% confident in her body, especially this early in the season, Game 5 of the year, it's just not worth the risk. And she was honest about still struggling with that. about still getting in her own head when something doesn't feel right physically. Now, there's another layer to this that's been floating around online, and I want to be clear, this is speculation, not confirmed fact. But some fans have traced the beginning of Clark's injury problems back to a specific moment during the 2025 season. Rumors suggest that a physical play involving Marina Mabrey, a hard shove that was caught on camera and widely circulated, may have been connected to the chain of injuries that followed. There's no official confirmation of that, no medical report linking the two. But it's been widely discussed in fan circles, and it's part of the conversation whether the league acknowledges it or not. What makes all of this so fascinating is the contrast. You've got a player who's openly admitting she's still working through the mental aftermath of a lost season, still battling the fear that her body might betray her again, and she's simultaneously playing the most controlled, most efficient, most cerebral basketball of her entire career. That's not a contradiction. That's growth. Fragility and excellence existing in the same person at the same time. And that combination, elite play layered over lingering vulnerability, is exactly what makes the rest of the league's problems so much worse. Let's talk pure basketball strategy for a minute, because this is where the picture gets genuinely frightening for the other 11 teams. For 2 full years, the defensive playbook against Caitlin Clark has been built on one core assumption. She needs to shoot. She needs the ball. She needs to be the one creating offense from the perimeter. And if you take away the deep look, if you run her off the three-point line, if you send the trap and force her to give it up, you've done your job. You've turned a scorer into a passer. You've neutralized the threat. On May 17th, she looked at that entire strategy and gave it the most devastating response possible. She said, "Fine, I'll pass, and we'll win by 11 anyway. Here's why that breaks everything. Player who needs to score has a vulnerability you can exploit. You can scheme for her. You can have a rough shooting night work in your favor. You can win individual possessions by making her uncomfortable. But a player who can choose not to score and still dismantle you, there's no lever to pull against that. There's no adjustment that fixes it. When Clark is hunting her shot, you can sometimes contain her. Force a miss here, a turnover there, live with the results. But when she's decided that shooting isn't even the point tonight, she stops competing on individual possessions and starts winning entire quarters. Because every time she gives the ball up, somebody on Indiana is getting an open look that she manufactured. And the math of the double team makes it worse. The moment you send a second defender at her, you've left somebody open. That's just arithmetic. If she's looking to score, maybe that gamble pays off. But if she's perfectly content to read the floor and deliver the ball to whoever Seattle forgot about for half a second, then your trap isn't a solution. It's a donation. You're gifting Indiana a 4-on-3 advantage on the weak side every single trip, and Clark is the one deciding where the damage comes from. And the numbers confirm this isn't a one-night thing. That double-double against Seattle was her 12th career game with at least 20 points and at least 10 assists. 12. That's the most in the history of the WNBA. Not the most among second-year players, not the most this season. The most by any player who has ever stepped onto a WNBA floor. And she reached that number in what amounts to roughly a season and a half of actual playing time. Players have spent a decade in this league and never strung together that many 20 and 10 nights. She's done it 12 times before she's even hit a normal player's full second season. And her career assists average? 8.5 per game. That's nearly 2 full assists more than anyone else in the history of the league. Not slightly ahead, not in the conversation, nearly 2 assists clear of second place. That's a generational gap disguised as a single number. The MVP conversation is interesting too. Clark came into this season as one of the betting favorites for the award. She's still very much in the hunt, though reports suggest Ja Wilson has surged ahead in the odds. But here's the thing about the MVP race. It's a regular season award, and the season is young. Clark keeps putting up nights like this one, 21 and 10 on 50% shooting with a side of defensive playmaking. The narrative is going to shift faster than odds can adjust. And she knows it. Then there's the team context. The Fever aren't some rebuilding project hoping to sneak into the playoffs. Indiana reached the WNBA semifinals last year. And here's a detail that should blow your mind. They took the eventual champion Las Vegas Aces to overtime in a decisive Game 5. And they did it without Clark for most of the season because of the injuries. That means the roster around her is already good enough to compete at the highest level. Now imagine that same roster with this version of Clark running the show for a full, healthy season. The Fever currently have the 3rd best championship odds in the league. And honestly, after watching what happened on May 17th, that might be undervaluing them. But records and odds are just numbers on a page. What matters is what all of it means for the months ahead. So let's zoom all the way out, past the box scores, past the injury timelines, past the controversy and the odds and the records, because the real story here is something simpler and something bigger than any single game. Every great team in basketball history has one thing in common. They don't depend on a star who can only do one thing brilliantly. They depend on a star who can choose. A player who can drop 35 when the moment demands scoring and turn around the next night, and run a clinic with 12 assists when the moment demands patience. A player who carries the load in one game and orchestrates from the background in the next. Who can be the closer or the creator or the decoy, whatever the defense forces her to become, and make each version look equally natural. That is exactly what Indiana watched unfold on May 17th. A version of Caitlin Clark who doesn't bend the game through force anymore. She reads it, she processes it, she gives it exactly what it needs and not a single thing more. 21 points and 10 assists might not sound as dramatic as a 40-point eruption, but it's more dangerous, because a 40-point night depends on makes. On the ball going through the hoop at an unsustainable rate, and makes are unreliable, they fluctuate. Even the best shooters in history have nights where the rim doesn't cooperate. But decisions are repeatable. Decisions don't go cold. And decisions are what drove every single possession in that Seattle game. The ripple effect through the roster is already visible. When your best player stops being predictable, life gets easier for everyone around her. Kelsey Mitchell finds cleaner space on the wing because defenses can't fully commit away from Clark on the perimeter. Cunningham steps into open threes she didn't have to manufacture. And when Aaliyah Boston is healthy and back in the rotation, she's going to get the cleanest post touches of her career. Because defenders can't sell out to double down low when the alternative is leaving a generational passer with a live dribble and shooters surrounding her on all four sides. That's what real point guard play does. It doesn't just generate stats for the player holding the ball. It lowers the degree of difficulty for every other person on the floor. There's been some noise around the team too. Clark and head coach Stephanie White reportedly had an animated exchange on the sideline during a loss to Portland that got people talking. Both of them shut it down fast, insisting there were no issues. And honestly, that might be the least surprising thing in this entire story. Competitive fire doesn't come with an off switch. Two intense people pushing each other in real time during a loss is exactly what a healthy team dynamic looks like when the standards are that high. And off the court, Clark is building something that extends way beyond basketball. She served as Grand Marshal at the Indianapolis 500, standing in front of hundreds of thousands of people as the face of Indiana sports in the broadest possible sense. She announced her first children's picture book. She's not just playing a sport. She's constructing a platform that will outlast her playing career by decades. And she's doing it while simultaneously reinventing how she plays the game itself. That's the part that should really resonate. This isn't just a scorer learning the league anymore. This isn't a talented rookie finding her footing. This is a player in the middle of a conscious transformation, turning herself from the most electrifying individual talent in women's basketball into the most complete floor general the sport has ever seen. And she's doing it at 24, in her second real season, after an injury that would have derailed most careers, while openly admitting that the mental scars from that injury are still fresh. When you watch the Seattle game back, don't watch it for the highlights. Watch the possessions where she doesn't shoot. Watch the extra pass. Watch the hesitation dribble that freezes the help defender just long enough for Mitchell to slide into an open lane. Watch the moments where the old Caitlin would have pulled the trigger from 27 feet and this version holds the ball for one more beat, one more read, one more decision that turns a good shot into a great one for somebody else. Because the shots are impressive. They always have been. But the decisions are the part that scales. The decisions are the part that wins in May, survives in August, and takes over in October. And the decisions are the part that nobody in this league has figured out how to stop. May 17th wasn't just another Sunday night win. It was a preview. A player who used to try to win games by herself quietly proving to everyone watching that she's learned something far more valuable. How to win them without having to. 10 shots. 11-point win. A league record set on a night she said she should have shot less. And a back injury waiting 3 days later to remind everyone that nothing about this story is guaranteed. When a player can dominate a game without dominating the stat sheet, the rest of the league has to throw out the blueprint it spent 2 years building. And when that same player tells you with a straight face that she's still figuring it out, that she's still getting better, that's not confidence. That's a warning. So here's what I want to know, and I actually read these. Do you think May 17th was the real turning point? The night the scorer officially became a floor general? Or do you think this is just one step in a much longer evolution towards something none of us have seen yet? Drop your answer in the comments. Tell me which version of Caitlin Clark you'd least want a game plan against. And if you want more breakdowns like this one, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because if this is what a regular season Sunday looks like for her now, the games that actually matter are going to be something else entirely.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.